So, hello everyone. Today we will be going to understand what are the different ways to handle client side logic within ServiceNow and how we can handle those client side functionalities based on our different business requirement. So, in today's video, we will be learning about an introductory to how what are the ways in which ServiceNow handles the client side and how we can configure with the help of low code, no code, or a pro code strategies. So as we all know that within client side space, ServiceNow offers us two ways to handle our client side logic. One way is UI policy, and other way is one way is UI policy, and other way is client scripts. The moment I say that in today's class, we will be understanding what are UI policies and how to configure them. And within UI policies, how we can create data policies. And we will be understanding all of these things in very depth. So once you follow this entire series, what I will be going to explain you from today onwards, you don't need to access any other tutorials. No need to go for any other courses specifically for the client side part of ServiceNow. I will going to cover everything from start to finish, like how client side client side logics are handled with the help of code, a pro code strategy or a low code strategy or a no code strategies. I will be discussing each and everything within this entire complete series where I will be explaining you all the client side APIs that ServiceNow bring for us on the table, which we can leverage to optimize our user experience specifically on the ServiceNow native forms. So and a bonus tip which I will be providing you to how to handle, specifically how to handle the performance side as well, because we all we never understood like how we can go in that in those advanced areas as well. But as said, let's start with today's class where I will be explaining you what are UI policies. So first, before starting, what are UI policies? Before starting UI policies, let us understand exactly what is UI policy. Now, let's say on a form, on a ServiceNow form. So if we have to make fields mandatory, read only, show or hide the fields. Let me okay. Let me bring the sh- show or hide the fields and related list at certain conditions. We use UI policy. This is the actual definition of why we use UI policy and what is the purpose of UI policy. So before getting in depth into UI policy, let's us discuss one of the use cases pertaining to it so that we can get a start. So so for this class I have created a few custom incident table specifically for student custom incident table. If you are associated with me in this channel from start, you might have seen that I usually use these custom tables to explain my logics and how to deal with all the scenarios and requirements within ServiceNow. So now let's go with our first requirement. Now let me click on create new button. So let's our form gets loaded. It's quite taking a time, but yeah, let's wait for a bit. Now, one thing which I really need to use here is that, see, when I say see the form, wherever change my state to resolve state, whenever I change my state to resolve state, I want that my resolution information, which is, let's say, resolution code or the resolution code and resolution notes, to get mandatory. Whenever my state is changed to resolve, I want my resolution code and resolution note to get mandatory. Let's try to implement this logic. Like how this logic can be implemented without writing a single piece of code with the help of UI policy. So if I just click on duplicate, let me duplicate this tab and let me right click on the header, configure and click on UI policies. Once I click on UI policy, I get this table. I will click on new. Let's wait for a bit. It's taking a time. It's taking a lot of time. Try to duplicate it from here. Cancel it and refresh the form. Click on new. Why this is taking a lot of time? Okay, so we are getting few exceptions. Okay, so our form got loaded. So this is our form. So as you all know our requirement, right? Whenever I change my state to resolve, I want I want my resolution code and resolution notes to get mandatory. This is my first requirement. So I will write a short description. It's just to describe like what is the purpose of our UI policy. Make resolution code and notes mandatory when state changes to resolved. Now here we have a condition builder. Now let us choose a condition here. Now I say that, okay, state, do we have any changes? State is, and I click on resolve. That's all. We will come to all these um, these properties uh, within no time. What is global? Just to understand global, onload, reverse if false, and all. So let us try to save the form first. Now, if I just now we within related list, I need to click on the UI policy actions. Once I click on new, once I click on new, I need to select the field name. So my first field name is resolution code. I will click on field name. I will click on resolution code and I will click on mandatory as true. Now for now, don't touch visible. The reason for it means that this visible leave alone is that this visible is not a part or is not participating into our this condition only mandatory is participating in the condition. Even if it is false, it means that the mandatory is going to participate in the condition. And if we don't have any visibility or any read only or the conditions, either one of them, which is not participating into our logic, so we will make them as leave alone. So let me click on submit the form. The instance is very slow today. So I guess there is some issue with the instances, but please bear with me. Like we will be going to understand each and entire thing. No worries. Now again, I will click on new. Now let me click on field name, which is also called as resolution notes. So let me click on resolution notes. So we had this resolution note and mandatory as to we want that these two will be mandatory. Now let me click on submit. Once we build this UI policy, now we have got our two UI policies, policy actions. So within this UI policy, UI policy action that is responsible to make our resolution and code and resolution note as mandatory has been inserted. Now let's try to check our logic. If I just reload the form again, and if I just make our, let me wait for the form to load. If I make our form to resolved, I can see my the resolution code and resolution note become mandatory. Okay. So this is the purpose of our UI policy. So if we want to make any field mandatory, read only, show or hide the field and related list at certain condition, we use UI policy. Okay. So this is what our UI policy is all about. Now let's try to understand like each of these concept. What is this and why we use it? Okay. Now first let's understand the reverse if fault. So this means that if the condition is not met, the changes will be reverted. So let's try to understand here. So if I just make it to on hold, okay. So the changes got reverted. Yeah, you here you can you see any resolution code or resolution node getting mandatory? No, right? Once I change it to resolved, I can see they are getting mandatory. But what if my reverse if false is not true or it is not it is unchecked and I will let me save the form. Okay, so let me wait my form to get saved. And now let me refresh the window, the form, the native form window. Now let us try to administer it. Okay, I have a reverse if false uncheck. Now I make it to resolve. Now you can see that my resolution code and resolution note is getting mandatory. But again, if someone user claims that, okay, put it on hold, it's still at a mandatory state. Okay. So reverse if false, checking it true, it means that if the condition not is not met or if the condition is not met, making it true, make sure that the changes, okay, it will revert the changes so that it will make sure that the changes get reverted. So okay, so it means that okay, let me write those properties over here and what does they mean. Okay, so I will just click on here. Okay, so we have got those properties and I will be adding those properties here. So it means that this condition means that if condition is not met, the changes will be reverted. Okay, this is our first condition. Okay, now let's try to understand what do we mean by an onload and how to use it. Okay, now first before that, let me first save the form. Okay, let me just refresh let me save this form here. Okay, now let me, if now I have, let me, okay, I have just saved the form. Now, so what does this onload means? Any day, any time, UI policy runs on two conditions. Specifically, when a form gets loaded, two, when uh, when when there is a change. It means that it means that UI policy will run on change as well as on load when the value gets changed or when the form is loading. So when I uncheck this form, this checkbox, it means that the moment I am restricting this UI policy not to run on form load. Let me save this. And before that, let me, um, try to save this form. Okay, let me try to save this form. I will, let me try to, add few comments here. If it is getting, loaded, test, event name, let me add test, testing UI policy. And let me try to assignment group as app engine. Okay, let me try to save the form first. So now, see, now let me try to, open this form in, let now, with the moment I saved the form got loaded. Because I have put this onload checkbox as false, so the UI policy didn't work on onload, and hence I cannot see the resolution code and resolution note as mandatory entity here. Let me show it again. Okay, let me copy this number. Let me go to my student. Okay, or student incident. Let me go to the list first. Okay, so this is my student incident which got created. The moment I open the form is loading, and the unchecking this onload checkbox, it means that the UI policy won't work on the form load. Hence, I cannot able to see here the mandatory mandatory symbol here. Let me if I just move it to on hold and again I move it to resolve, I can see the mandatory preloaded with saved it. Okay, this is, I cannot see that, but the moment the form is getting loaded, you cannot see it here. Okay, so this is the purpose of my onload. If let me make it checkbox as true. Now let's try to understand this global checkbox. Let's try to understand this global checkbox. So now the moment I click uncheck the global checkbox, within a form, we have views, okay? So if I just go here, check on the views, I have got America view, I have got China view, I have got customer view, I have got default views as well. Now, I want that this UI policy to run on a specific view. So what I will do here, let me go to America view and let me try to see how our form looks. Okay. So for America view, we don't have any resolution section. Okay. Now for America view, let's make it one thing. When the category is selected as, okay, let me see, is there any other view where we can get the forms? Okay, let me go to China view. Okay, for the China view, I can see the resolution code and resolution note. I want, when my state is changed to resolve, I only want to show the resolution code and resolution note mandatory only in the China view. Okay. Now for that, let me open a new form over here just to make sure that, and let me, try to duplicate the form, and let me close this window, and let me make this form, let me, make this form into, uh, let's say our into a China view. So let me first click on analytics. Let me just try to save the form. Okay, so this form is in already in China view. Cool. This form is in China view, and let me just open. Okay, let me first, so okay, so this form is already in the China view. Now I will click on the uncheck the global checkbox, and I will click on view, and I will select the all China view from here. Okay, so the China view got selected, and I will click on save. So moment I click on the China view, I will now refresh the form. Okay, the moment I change the form into resolved on China view, the resolution code and resolution note is getting mandatory. Okay, now let me try to save the form. Assignment group. Okay, that's all. That is more than a resolution note. Resolution code. Okay, cool. Now let me save the form. Okay, so it seems that my form is getting inserted. Now, if I just duplicate the form, so I will open two views at the same time just to demonstrate you this. So once my it is in resolved state, I can see my resolution note and resolution code as mandatory. But the moment I, change the view to default view, and when my change state is changed to resolved, I cannot see my resolution code and resolution node as mandatory over here. So the only mandatory which I can see it on the resolution code and resolution note on the China view of the form. Let me just remove this for now. If I just move to none, or if I just, remove this, I can see these are getting highlighted. And if I just, in progress, resolution code and resolution note aren't mandatory over here. And if I just make it to resolve, I can see those are getting mandatory over here. But at the default view of our form, when I just, make it over here, let me just, unselect these values. Okay. Now, if I just make state to resolved, I cannot see any resolution code or resolution would get mandatory because I have specifically mentioned here that this view should always run on China view, not on any other view. Cool. Let me click on the global checkbox. So this is how all of my these conditions, let's say global, on load, and reverse if false works. Now in the next class, we will try to understand how inherit works and how UI policy can be extended to the other child tables because of this inherit checkbox. Okay, so thank you so much. We will meet in the next class to understand more UI policies and client side actions. Thanks a lot, and thanks for watching my videos. So hope you liked it. Okay, thank you so